The rejected Omega girl no one wanted, but the Alpha King chose her at the auction. The night sky above Nithris' kingdom was dark like spilled ink across broken glass. Cold wind moved through the narrow streets, whispering through iron gates and cracked stone walls. In this kingdom, freedom was something only the rich could buy, and love was something that only the cursed could feel deeply. In the underground market, far below the royal city, candles burned with weak yellow light. Their flames flickered like frightened hearts. People from noble families and dark secret societies gathered in silence. They were not here for trade of normal goods. They were here for something much darker. They were here for souls. The auction hall was built inside an old abandoned temple. The walls were carved with forgotten symbols of magic and ancient wars. Nobody remembered which god had once been worshipped here. Now the temple only remembered pain, fear, and power. On the stage stood a young girl. Her wrists were chained lightly, not because she would run away, but because the kingdom believed in showing dominance over unwanted souls. Her hair was long, silver-white like moonlight trapped inside snow. Some people believed silver hair was a sign of magic. Others believed it was a sign of bad luck. She was known as the rejected Omega girl, but her real name was Lyra. She did not cry. She did not struggle. Her eyes were quiet like deep oceans during a storm. She had learned long ago that crying only made people more cruel. So she stood straight, breathing slowly, controlling the fear inside her chest. The auction master spoke loudly. "Tonight we present a rare Omega bloodline female, strong emotional magic resonance, good for royal experiments or royal service." The crowd laughed softly. Omega bloodlines were both feared and hated in Nithris. They were believed to carry unstable magic. Some people said Omegas could heal emotions. Others said they could destroy kingdoms if their hearts broke too deeply. But nobody wanted to buy Lyra, not because she was weak, but because she was dangerous in ways that could not be controlled. A nobleman raised his hand lazily. "Why is she rejected?" he asked. The auction master smiled. "She was born in a pack village. Her own people sold her because they feared her emotional magic. Omega abilities sometimes grow stronger when they feel rejection. Nobody wanted to risk raising a girl who could control hearts, memories, or dreams." The crowd became quieter. Some were interested now, not because they wanted her as a person, but because they wanted her power. Lyra remembered her childhood in flashes of pain. She remembered being a child who could feel other people's emotions like they were storms inside her own body. When her pack members felt anger, she felt burning heat in her chest. When they felt sadness, she felt drowning cold. One night, when she was 10 years old, her emotional magic accidentally calmed an angry war chief during a negotiation. The chief believed she was trying to control him. The next morning, she was sold. She had been passed from merchant to merchant like forgotten jewelry. Until tonight, the auction continued. Starting bid 50 gold coins, silence, 40. Some Omegas were known to cause madness when hurt too deeply. Lyra kept her breathing slow. She was trying to remember the sound of waves near her childhood village. Waves did not judge. Waves did not hate. Then suddenly, the large iron doors at the back of the temple hall opened. The sound was not loud, but it was heavy, like thunder walking slowly across stone floors. Everyone turned. He entered like a dark storm given human shape, the Alpha King of Nithris. His armor was black with red glowing runes across the chest plate. Those runes were not decoration. They were ancient war magic seals meant to suppress dangerous supernatural forces. He walked slowly, calmly, like someone who did not fear anything in this world. The crowd immediately bowed. Kings were not supposed to attend slave auctions, but Nithris was not a kingdom ruled by kindness. It was ruled by survival. The king's eyes moved across the stage. His gaze was sharp, calculating, and strangely tired. Then he looked directly at Lyra. Something inside her chest tightened. Not fear, not exactly, something like recognition, like meeting someone you had been dreaming about but could not remember. The king spoke. "I will bid." The auction master looked shocked. What is your offer, your majesty?" The king removed a small royal seal ring from his finger. "This is a blood oath seal of Nithris royal family," he said calmly. "It binds magic contracts stronger than gold." The hall became completely silent. Royal blood oath seals were extremely dangerous. If the contract was broken, the magic backlash could destroy both owner and receiver. The auction master's hands were shaking. Does your majesty wish to own her as a servant?" The king did not look away from Lyra. "No," he said, "I wish to bind her to my protection." That was even more dangerous, because protection contracts meant emotional and magical connection. If she died, the king would feel her death like a wound inside his own soul. The auction master accepted. Sold to the Alpha King. The chains around Lyra's wrists were removed personally by the king. His hands were cold, not cruelly cold, just cold like night air before snowfall. "You will not be property," he said quietly. Lyra finally spoke. "Then why did you buy me?" The king looked at her for a long moment. "Because," he said slowly, "my kingdom is dying from an ancient curse, and your emotional magic can stabilize unstable dark magic." She felt something sharp in her chest, not sadness, not anger, something between both. "So I am a tool," she said softly. "You are survival," he replied. He turned away, signaling for guards to escort her to the royal carriage, but before she left the stage, she noticed something strange. The king's shadow did not move like one shadow. It moved like two shadows standing inside each other. One shadow was calm and controlled. The other was darker, more restless, like something trapped inside him was watching her. That night, Lyra was taken to the royal palace. The palace was built on top of ancient ruins of magic wars. The walls hummed softly with power. Servants avoided looking at her directly. They gave her a room in the highest tower. The bed was soft. The windows showed the dark kingdom lights below like scattered stars. She should have felt safe, but she felt watched. When she lay down to sleep, she heard voices in the corridor outside her room. The king was speaking, but there was another voice answering him. Low, rough, like something trying to break through chains made of magic and willpower. Lyra sat up slowly in her bed. She pressed her hand against her chest. Her Omega magic was reacting to something dangerous. Something inside the castle was waking up. And far below the royal palace, in the forgotten crypts of Nitharis, chains made of black magic began to move slowly against ancient stone walls, as if something very old had just felt the presence of a new and powerful soul inside the kingdom. Something hungry, something cursed. Something that was waiting for the moment when the king's control would weaken. And outside, the wind howled like it was warning the kingdom that fate had just started writing a dangerous love story. Because the king had bought a girl he did not fully understand. And the girl had been sold to a king who was fighting two wars at once, one against enemies outside, and one against the darkness inside himself. That night, Lyra did not sleep. Because in the silence of the royal tower, she heard someone whisper her name from somewhere deep inside the castle walls. And the voice sounded like it had been waiting for her for a very long time. The night after the auction felt heavier than usual inside the kingdom of Nitharis. The wind moved slowly through the tall towers of the royal palace, like it was carrying secrets it did not want to share. Inside the highest tower of the palace, Lyra sat near the window. The moon was full that night. Its light fell across the kingdom like cold silver water. From her window, she could see the distant lights of the city below. People were still awake. Traders were closing their shops. Soldiers were walking along the walls, guarding the kingdom from enemies outside. But Lyra felt that danger was not only outside. It was inside the palace. Since she had arrived, she had felt strange emotional magic waves in the air. Sometimes they felt like anger, sometimes sadness, sometimes something darker like fear mixed with hunger. Omega magic was sensitive to emotions. It could feel hidden feelings around it like weather changes, and the palace was full of pain. Lyra stood up slowly and walked toward the door. She did not know why, but something inside her chest kept pulling her toward the lower floors of the palace. She opened the door quietly and stepped into the corridor. The palace corridors were long and quiet at night. Only a few magic lamps burned on the walls. The light from those lamps moved slowly, like breathing fireflies. She walked carefully, barefoot on cold stone floors. She followed a sound. It was very soft at first, like someone breathing heavily in pain. Then it became louder, like chains moving against stone. The sound came from below the palace, from the old royal crypts. The crypts were forbidden to most people. Even royal servants avoided them. Old legends said the crypts were built on top of ancient battle magic ruins. Some said dangerous magic creatures were sealed there long ago. But Lyra kept walking. Her Omega magic was reacting strongly now. Her heart was beating faster. Not from fear, from connection, like something inside her was answering something else inside the palace. Finally, she reached the heavy iron door leading to the crypt stairs. The door was not locked. She pushed it open slowly. Cold air moved up from the darkness below. The air smelled like old stone, dried herbs, and ancient magic. Lyra started walking down the stairs. The stairs were long, very long. The deeper she went, the darker it became. The magic lamps stopped working after a certain point. She had to continue in darkness, using her hand to touch the stone wall for guidance. Then she heard voices. Two voices. One voice was low and controlled. Calm, powerful. The other voice was rough, like something wild was trying to break free. "Control yourself," the first voice said. "You cannot hold me forever," the second voice answered. Lyra's heart tightened. She knew that voice. It belonged to the Alpha King. She reached the bottom of the stairs and saw him. He was kneeling on the stone floor of the crypt. His black royal armor was partially removed. Chains made of dark magic were wrapped around his arms and chest. The chains were glowing faint red like burning wounds. The king was holding his own throat with one hand, like he was trying to stop himself from losing control. "Leave," he said without turning around. "You were not supposed to come here." Lyra did not move. "I heard you," she said softly. The king closed his eyes. "I told you," he said. "My curse is dangerous." Slowly, he stood up. Lyra saw something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. His shadow on the wall was not one shadow. It was two. One shadow stood still like a royal king. The other shadow moved slowly behind him like a creature trying to escape from inside his body. The king turned to face her. His eyes were dark, not black, but dark like deep night sky without stars. "My family bloodline was cursed generations ago," he said. "A dying witch placed a curse on my ancestors. The curse splits royal souls into two personalities." He paused. "One is light, controlled, logical. The other is darkness, emotional, powerful, and hungry." Lyra listened quietly. "When I was crowned king," he continued, "the curse became stronger. The throne magic feeds the curse. It wants to break my control." He looked at her. "And that is why I bought you." Lyra felt pain in her chest. "Because I can absorb emotional magic?" she asked. "Yes," he said honestly. "Omega magic can stabilize unstable emotional magic. When you are near me, my curse becomes weaker." Silence fell between them. Lyra felt something complicated inside her heart. She had been sold because she was useful. But at the same time, she could feel that the king was not lying to her. He was tired, very tired, like someone who had been fighting darkness alone for many years. "You are not just using me," she said quietly. The king looked surprised. No one had spoken to him like that before. "I can feel it," she continued. "You are afraid of your own curse." The king did not answer immediately. Then he said, very softly, "Yes." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Omega magic sometimes connected emotions between people who stayed close. Lyra could feel his loneliness. It was heavy, old, like chains he had been carrying since childhood. Without thinking too much, she walked closer. The king did not move away. She slowly placed her hand on his arm where the dark magic chains were glowing. Omega magic started flowing softly from her body. It felt like warm wind in winter. The chains on his body started to weaken slightly. The king's breathing became slower. For the first time since she met him, he looked relaxed. "You should not do this," he said, but his voice did not sound angry. "Why?" she asked. "Because if I lose control," he said, "I might not recognize you." Lyra looked up at him. "Then I will remind you who you are," she said simply. Something inside the king's expression changed. Not happiness, not relief, something deeper. Like hope was a dangerous emotion he had not allowed himself to feel for a long time, but suddenly the crypt walls began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling. The dark magic chains around the king's body started glowing brighter, faster, like they were reacting to something far deeper underground. The king's eyes changed color slightly. The dark shadow behind him became stronger. "They are waking up," he whispered. "Who?" Lyra asked. "The ancient creatures sealed beneath the kingdom," he said. "They feed on royal curse magic, and they can sense when my control weakens." The ground under them shook again. Far below, deep inside the earth, something massive moved slowly. Something ancient, something hungry. The king grabbed Lyra's arm. "Run back to your tower," he said urgently. "Now." But Lyra felt something stronger than fear. She felt destiny pulling her forward. Because her Omega magic was not just sensing danger, it was sensing other lost souls. And somewhere below the palace, something was calling her back, like she belonged to it. "I am not running," she said quietly. The king looked at her with shock. "You should," he said. But before she could answer, the ground cracked open slightly near the crypt walls. Black smoke like magic started leaking upward, and from deep inside the darkness, something whispered Lyra's name again. This time, the voice was not human, and it sounded happy that she had come closer to the darkness. The king pulled her behind him protectively, because he understood something terrifying. The curse inside him was not the only danger. The kingdom itself was hiding ancient secrets. And Lyra might not just be a rescued Omega girl. She might be the key to awakening something older than Nithris itself. Something that wanted her not as a victim, but as a queen. The darkness below the palace grew stronger. And for the first time in many years, the Alpha King felt real fear. Not for himself, but for the girl standing beside him. Because love was starting to grow between two cursed souls, and love in Nithris was always dangerous. Especially when destiny itself was watching. The night after the crypt incident was quiet on the surface of Nithris Kingdom. But deep beneath the calm sky, something was changing. The royal palace felt heavier now. Lyra could feel it. Omega magic was very sensitive to emotional and magical energy, and the palace was full of tension. Soldiers walked faster along the walls. Royal guards spoke in low voices. Something was coming, something important, something dangerous. Lyra stood on the balcony of her tower room. The wind moved gently through her silver-white hair. She had started feeling different since the night in the crypts. Her magic felt stronger but also unstable, like a growing storm inside her chest. She had spent the morning thinking about the king. The Alpha King of Nithris was not an easy man to understand. He was strong, quiet, and always carried the weight of his kingdom on his shoulders. But Lyra had seen something else inside him. Loneliness, fear of losing control, and something like kindness hidden under royal responsibility. She was still thinking about him when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned slowly. The king was standing in the doorway of her room. He was wearing simple royal clothes instead of armor. That surprised her. Kings usually wore armor or royal robes to show power, but today he looked more like a tired man than a king. "You should not stand near open windows," he said quietly. "The wind is strong tonight." "I like the wind," Lyra said. "It feels free." The king did not smile, but his eyes softened slightly. There was silence between them for a few moments. Then he spoke. "There is something you need to know." Lyra felt her chest tighten slightly. The king walked closer but stopped a few steps away. He respected her personal space. That was unusual for a king. "My royal advisors discovered something about your bloodline," he said. Lyra's heart started beating faster. "What did you find?" she asked. "You are not just an Omega girl," he said slowly. "Your bloodline is very old." Older than Nithris Kingdom itself. Lyra felt cold. "I was born in a pack village," she said. "My family sold me because they feared my magic." "Yes," the king said, "but your bloodline does not belong to that village." He took a deep breath. "You are the last descendant of the Moon Empress bloodline." Silence filled the room. Lyra did not speak at first. She could not process the words. The Moon Empress was a myth in many kingdoms. Some believed she was a goddess of magic. Others believed she was a real queen from ancient times who ruled over forgotten supernatural lands. "I don't understand," Lyra said finally. "The Moon Empress bloodline had powers connected to emotional magic and nature magic," the king explained. "Your Omega abilities are not random, they are inherited." He paused. "But your bloodline was hunted and destroyed centuries ago." Lyra felt pain in her chest. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Because your ancestors had power to control ancient supernatural creatures," the king said. "Some kingdoms feared that power, so they started wars to destroy the bloodline." Lyra looked down at her hands. She felt strange, not shocked, not scared, more like lonely in a new way. "I was sold because I was dangerous," she said softly. "Yes," the king said. He looked at her carefully. "But there is more." Lyra looked up. "Your bloodline is not only powerful," he continued. "It is also connected to the ancient creatures under Nithris Kingdom." Her heart stopped for a moment. "The creatures I felt in the crypts," she said. "Yes." The king walked closer now. "They are not just monsters," he said. "They are ancient spirits sealed after an old magical war. They were once servants of the Moon Empress bloodline." Lyra felt a strange pull inside her chest, like something inside her was waking up slowly. "And they are calling me," she said. The king nodded. "That is dangerous," he said. "If they fully awaken, kingdoms could fall into chaos." Lyra felt fear, but she also felt something else, curiosity, because she could feel emotional echoes from those ancient creatures. Not anger, not hatred, loneliness, like they had been trapped for centuries without freedom. Suddenly, loud footsteps ran through the palace corridors outside. Then a guard knocked heavily on the door. "Your Majesty," the guard shouted. "The northern borders are under attack." The king's expression changed instantly. "What kind of attack?" he asked sharply. "Supernatural creatures," the guard said. "They are moving toward the capital city walls." The king turned toward Lyra. "They are coming for you," he said. She felt fear but also determination. "I am not hiding," she said. The king studied her face for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. "Then you will stand beside me," he said. They went to the royal battlefield walls together. The night sky was darker now. Thick black clouds moved quickly above the kingdom. Lightning flashed far in the distance. From beyond the city walls, Lyra saw them. Supernatural creatures. Some had wings, some had large animal forms, some looked like shadows with glowing eyes. But they were not attacking immediately. They were waiting for something. Then one creature stepped forward. It was larger than the others. Its body was made of dark shadow magic, but its eyes were silver like moonlight. It spoke in a deep voice inside Lyra's mind. "Child of the Moon Empress," the creature said mentally. "Return to us." Lyra felt emotional pressure inside her chest. Sadness, longing, freedom. The king stepped closer to her protectively. "You do not have to go with them," he said quietly, but Lyra was shaking slightly. "They are not attacking," she said. "They are asking." The creature spoke again inside her mind. "We were once protectors of your bloodline," it said. "We were betrayed and sealed underground. We do not want war, we want freedom." Lyra looked at the king. "I can feel their emotions," she said. "They are not lying." The king was silent. He knew something terrible. If the creatures were released, they could become uncontrollable. But if they stayed sealed, they would continue suffering. It was a choice between safety and freedom, between fear and mercy. Then suddenly the king removed his royal crown. He placed it in Lyra's hands. "What are you doing?" she asked. "You must choose," he said. "You are their bloodline heir, not me, not the kingdom." Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes. She looked at the creatures beyond the walls. Then she spoke loudly. "I do not want war," she said, "but I will not allow suffering either." Her Omega magic spread through the wind like silver light. The creatures reacted immediately. They felt calm, hope. The ground beneath the kingdom started shaking again, not violently. Slowly, like something ancient was waking up. The king grabbed Lyra's hand because he realized something terrifying. Her magic was not just calming creatures. She was starting to unlock the ancient seal beneath the kingdom. And if the seal broke completely, something far more powerful than creatures would awaken, something that could change the fate of Nitharis forever. The king looked at her with fear and love mixed together. "Stop," he said softly, but Lyra shook her head. "I cannot," she said, because she could hear voices calling her from deep underground, calling her queen, calling her home. And in the darkness below the kingdom, ancient magic chains started breaking slowly one by one. The war was not coming. It was already beginning. And Nitharis' kingdom was standing on the edge of an ancient destiny that no one could escape. Not the king, not the girl, and not the dark secrets sleeping beneath the earth. The kingdom of Nitharis stood on the edge of war and destiny. The night sky above the capital was filled with dark clouds moving slowly like giant shadows watching the world below. Lightning flashed far in the distance, but no rain had fallen yet. It felt like the world was holding its breath. On the battlefield walls of Nitharis, soldiers stood in silence. Their armor reflected the pale moonlight. None of them spoke loudly. Even the horses were quiet, as if they could feel that something ancient was about to awaken. Lyra stood beside the Alpha King. The wind moved around her like soft whispers. Her silver-white hair moved slowly behind her like flowing moonlight. Her heart was beating fast, but she was not afraid. Not fully. Fear and courage were mixed inside her chest like two fighting storms. Below the kingdom, deep inside the earth, magic chains were breaking slowly. Lyra could feel it. Her Omega bloodline was waking ancient spirits. Not violently, not with anger, with longing. The supernatural creatures outside the city walls had stopped moving. They were waiting. Watching, their silver eyes reflected Lyra's magic light. The Alpha King stood close to her, not as a ruler, but as someone who wanted to protect her. "You can still stop this," he said quietly. Lyra shook her head. "I cannot stop destiny," she said. "But I can choose how it ends." The king looked at her carefully. Since the day he bought her at the auction, he had changed. His curse was still inside him. The dark and light souls inside his body still fought each other, but Lyra's presence had made his curse weaker. Love was dangerous magic in Nitharis, but it was also powerful. Suddenly, loud cracking sounds came from beneath the city. The ground started shaking slightly, not like an earthquake, more like something huge was trying to wake up slowly after sleeping for centuries. The supernatural creatures outside the walls knelt down, not in fear, in respect. Then the leader creature spoke inside Lyra's mind. "Child of the Moon Empress," it said, "open the seal, free us." Lyra closed her eyes. She felt memories she had never lived. Ancient temples under moonlight, queens wearing silver crowns, creatures protecting magical kingdoms. Peaceful nights filled with magic songs. Then she felt pain, wars, betrayal, fear, kingdoms hunting her ancestors. Bloodline magic being destroyed because it was too powerful to control. Her chest felt heavy. She opened her eyes slowly. "I will free you," she said aloud. Soldiers on the wall became nervous. Some raised their weapons slightly. They did not trust supernatural creatures. They had been taught to fear them. The king stepped forward slightly. He spoke to his soldiers. "Lower your weapons," he commanded. Shock spread across the soldiers' faces. "But your majesty," one soldier began. "The girl standing beside me is not an enemy," the king said firmly. "She is part of Nitharis' destiny now." Then he turned to Lyra. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "I will stand beside you." That moment felt very important, not like royal duty, like choice. Lyra walked forward to the edge of the battlefield wall. Below her, the dark earth began to glow with silver light. She raised both her hands slowly. Omega magic spread from her body like soft moonlight wind. The ground cracked slowly, not violently, slowly, like opening an old door that had been closed for too long. Deep underground, ancient stone seals began to break. One by one, the supernatural creatures outside the walls felt freedom approaching. Their shadows grew stronger, but they did not attack. They waited patiently because they respected her choice. Then the earth opened slightly in the distance outside the city. A massive underground chamber was revealed. Inside the chamber stood something enormous, an ancient spirit creature larger than castles. Its body was made of dark silver magic. Its eyes were gentle but extremely powerful. It spoke inside Lyra's mind. "Queen of lost bloodlines," it said, "you have returned." Lyra felt tears in her eyes. "I was never here before," she said. "You were always meant to return," the spirit said. "Your bloodline was not created to rule kingdoms. It was created to balance magic and nature." Lyra felt emotional pressure inside her chest. She looked back at the king. He was watching her carefully, not controlling her, not ordering her, just watching. Like someone afraid of losing something precious, the spirit spoke again. "Choose," it said, "free us completely or keep us sealed and protect the kingdom from chaos." This was the hardest choice. Freedom could bring peace, but it could also bring destruction if creatures lost control. Lyra thought about her childhood. She thought about being sold because people feared her magic. She thought about the king fighting his own curse alone for years. She thought about suffering and loneliness. Then she spoke. "You will be free," she said, "but you will not attack innocent people." The spirit bowed slowly. "We accept your terms, Queen of Moon Blood." Silver light exploded softly across the battlefield sky. The supernatural creatures outside the walls felt their chains breaking completely. Some of them spread their wings and flew into the sky. Others returned underground to live freely. There was no war, only freedom. Soldiers lowered their weapons slowly. Some were crying quietly. They had expected destruction. Instead, they saw mercy. The king walked beside Lyra. "You did it," he said quietly. Lyra smiled slightly. "No," she said, "we did it together." Then suddenly the king stopped moving. His body stiffened. Dark magic started leaking from his chest armor. The curse inside him reacted strongly to the powerful magic release happening around the kingdom. His shadow behind him split again. One shadow was controlled. The other shadow grew larger and darker. "You should leave," the king said through clenched teeth. "No," Lyra said immediately. The dark soul inside the king's body spoke loudly in the air around them. "You are the key," it said to Lyra. "If I destroy her, I can control the king completely." Dark magic exploded outward. Soldiers moved backward in fear. The king was fighting internally, trying to control the curse. Lyra stepped forward. She placed both her hands on his chest. Omega magic flowed into him like warm light. She did not fight the darkness. She balanced it. Light and dark magic began stabilizing inside his body. The king fell to his knees slowly, breathing heavily. For the first time in his life, he felt peace inside his curse. "You saved me," he said quietly. "No," Lyra said gently. "You chose to fight for yourself." Night slowly turned lighter, not because morning had arrived, but because destiny had changed. Nithris' kingdom would never be the same again. The supernatural creatures had gained freedom. The cursed king had begun healing, and the rejected Omega girl was no longer rejected. She was not property, she was not a weapon, she was not just a survivor. She was the balance between worlds. Years later, people would tell stories about that night. They would say a queen of moonlight stood on the battlefield and chose mercy over destruction. And they would say the king of Nithris learned that love was not about ownership. It was about standing beside someone even when darkness tried to pull you apart. That night, Lyra and the king stood together on the palace wall, watching the new future of their kingdom slowly rise under silver moonlight. And somewhere deep inside the earth, ancient magic spirits whispered her name with gratitude, because destiny had finally remembered the girl who was once rejected by the world.